Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
And welcome back, everybody. Always love having our next guest on because his concern is our children and what they're thinking, what they're internalizing, what they're feeling. He spent many, many decades as a psychologist at the Reed Union School District in California. And this is Good Advice Helps with Dr. Allan Philip Gold back on the program. Lots to talk about today. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
Fantastic.
Good.
Fantastic. And just want to get your feedback, your feeling on the current situation. You know, we're exposed to media messages. We got a lot of things going on globally. As adults, it's concerning. And wonder about everything from the economy to finances to everything else. Just leave it at that. Now take that and view it through the eyes of an elementary school student, a middle school student, maybe even a high school student, and what they're thinking. I try to take myself back to when I was that age and things that were going on. And, I even remember some things, there was a war going on in some areas. And, I felt it, so I can't imagine now. There wasn't social media back then. All this stuff just barraging the young mind. What's your initial thoughts on all of that?
Yeah. Thanks for asking. No, I do have a lot of very deep concerns about what's going on in the society now. You were referring to when you were young. Yes, when I was young, there was the threat of World War III. The Cold War was going on. We had to do uh, drills for, air raid drills, just in case there were a bomb. So there was fear, but it seemed very unreal, at least when I was in
Mm.
grammar school. I remember when I was a senior in high school, sitting in a car outside my high school in October of 1962. When the Cuban Missile Crisis was going on, and I was
Wow.
waiting for a bomb to come sailing over. And this was in San Francisco, 3,000 miles away. So
Mm.
it's for parents to believe that children are not aware of what's going on in the world is wrong. Now, some kids experience it more deeply and are more aware. Even I've found that, kids about 10 years old would become pretty much aware of what's going on in the world. But now, with social media and television, and I mean, we had television too, but it's they're exposed to a lot.
Alan,
And
I just want to say, because I have chills in what you just said. In terms of when we were younger, it didn't seem real. It
Mhm.
didn't seem real. And I have memories. There was a student that went to my high school that was killed in Pakistan during a riot. And I remember helicopters landing on the football field of the high school because the news media was coming out. This is where he went to high school. And it almost didn't seem real. But now, because of social media and how we're connected, good and bad, it does seem real. I never even thought of it that way. So thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah. Well, when things during the Vietnam War, when I was in college and graduate school, then then it really seemed real because I was a potential victim.
Mm,
I could be drafted, I could be sent over there, I could be killed.
same.
So by that time, of course, I was a late teenager and early 20s, and it was very, very real. And what was also upsetting was on television, that was the first time because they didn't have TV during World War II, but they would indicate how many soldiers were killed, and there was almost something numbing about it. And that's another thing I worry about is how, with all of what's going on, how numb are not just kids, but adults, where they, I mean, I know plenty of friends who say, I don't watch the news anymore.
Mm,
I don't want to be depressed. But getting back to what kids are experiencing now, um, and this is going to sound political, but my sense when I was working in the when Trump became president for the first time, I saw a surge in meanness among kids. In my opinion,
Wow.
and I'm going to be frank about this, there has never been a president of the United States that has been such a horrible role model for how to treat other people. You know, his derogatory comments about everybody, even other Republican competitors in the 2016 primaries. You know, he would just put people down and with absolutely no censorship in that. And one might ask, well, kids don't listen to that stuff. Well, I think they do absorb it. You know, that if you think of other presidents of the United States, every other president, they weren't derogatory to people. They wouldn't put their competitors down. I mean, there's nothing the matter with having a different opinion about something, but when you use your status and your role as the leader of this country to denigrate other people if they disagree with you. And then the actions that he's taking to, you know, the revenge and you know, using our whole justice system to take advantage of and to put these people down, it's really wrong. And what the question is, what do kids absorb from this? You know, and a lot of it would be if parents are given permission to be nasty to each other or to other people or to friends, kids observe that all the time.
Mm,
Uh, if it gives people permission on social media. Now, I don't want to blame Trump for all of this because it started to happen before, but it really exacerbates the meanness that happens on social media. You know, just the fact that you don't have to say something to somebody in person that you may never say in person, but you can post it. You know, uh, it really increases all of that meanness. So people, you know, and kids aren't taught these days to think about what they say and what the impact of their words might be on somebody else. I mean, they need
mm,
to be taught that. Parents need to teach them that. Teachers need to teach them that. School psychologists need to teach them that. You know, you might have a feeling about something, but you don't just blurt it out um, without thinking. You know, you wonder where empathy is these days. Does anybody have any feelings for other people? Well, I think they do, and kids really do. You look at little kids, and you know, another kid's crying. A 3-year-old might be crying, and a small child might go up and pat them on the head, or put their arm around them.
mm, mm,
So, you know, I think for most people, except sociopaths, empathy is it's built into our being as a human being. But the more one is exposed to lack of empathy and just narcissism and egotism in the world, the less that empathy gets expressed. So no, I have very serious concerns for that, and you know, even parents. You know, when a kid does something that's empathic and kind, do they respond to it? Do they say, that was really nice of you to do that? That really helped so and so feel better. And I wonder if parents do that. I mean, right now, parents are so involved in their own computers and their own social media and their
mm,
own work that I worry that parents don't acknowledge when kids are um, doing the right thing as far as showing care for other people. Um, you know, that's they'll certainly criticize their kids when they do something wrong, but and you know that builds up too. So you know if kids are always criticized, whether it's they're always corrected by parents and by teachers. That's just natural.
mm,
You know, the kids make mistakes. They don't do everything right all the time. but they also need to have compliments and praise. And if that's ignored, and it is, not I won't say by everybody, but um, if that's ignored, then that builds up inside, and then when somebody does something that's hurtful or mean or dumb, they'll just lash out at that other person. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done. Now, I don't know when you were raised if your parents helped you, think about how other people felt. I think my parents did. Um,
Isn't it funny? Because I'm thinking the same thing. I think, but I'm not 100% sure. But I know in raising my kids, it's with that eye of empathy. My son's an Eagle Scout. Like he is, public service, wants to help people. What can I do? That kind of thing. Um, I believe it's because that was instilled in him.
yeah,
But I'm trying to remember, like,
yeah.
I don't know when I was a kid. And
And
it seems like you're coming up with the same conclusion there.
right, yeah. I mean, like my father was very critical of me, but which I
Same,
resent.
by the way.
Yes, but he never said anything bad about anybody else except for Adolf Hitler, which was okay, but as far as friends were concerned, or some, his
Well,
sister.
you just brought back a memory, and now it just clicked in my mind. This is why you're beautiful in, in the way you talk. It's like I do have memories of relatives that would speak negatively of different groups of people. And maybe that was the temperature of the time, but it was many years that I held that in, well, that's the way it's supposed to be. I'm a kid, right? Oh, those people are bad, blah, 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 blah. Until I got older in my 20s and looked back, it's like, no, 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 no. And even, one of my early best friends was with a group, we'll just leave it at that. That one of my relatives, not mother or father, would make comments of, and I would hear it. I'm like, well, no, I'm hanging with him. He's a great guy, Like, so it's kind of, it was a different time. I get
Yeah,
that.
it was a different time, but there was a lot of prejudice then, uh,
Yes.
and it was subtle, and I've always felt very fortunate to grow up in San Francisco because it was a very diverse community.
Hmm.
I'm Jewish, and I never experienced anti-Semitism when I was a kid. I had African American friends, Asian friends. My high school was pretty well integrated. It was an academically challenging high school, but I just didn't hear prejudice about other people. And how you grow up, that really does stick with you, you know. You
Yeah.
know.
And it takes time. You look for evidence as you grow up. So if you don't see
Yeah.
evidence of things that maybe you heard, not even from relatives or family, just messages, I want to share something. And this is in real time. Based
Mhm.
on what you're saying, I just saw a post of a friend that I went to elementary school with. It's almost as if, like, it's amazing what this came in the feed. He posted, and I'm not even sure what he does nowadays, but he says, and I'm going to read what he put here. This is what our educational institutions are promoting, more like indoctrination and pushing an agenda. Let folks make up their own minds instead of steering and pushing an agenda. And he provided some photos of a magazine called American Educator. So it's apparently a magazine for educators, teachers.
Yeah.
And on the front page, there's a picture of like maybe it's Washington, but like thousands of people lining a street from the sky. Like you can't even, I mean, so many people. And the headline is Fighting for Our Democracy, We Rise Up. So basically what he's saying is why are we pushing this? And there's a whole article in here and such. That's from a magazine, and I've seen that magazine before. I'm not a teacher.
Mhm.
And it's almost as if they're trying to push a direction, and he's saying, let people decide for themselves. What are your thoughts on that? I just literally in real time here.
Well, my feeling about what education should be doing is teaching critical thinking.
Mm,
And and I'm very serious about that. And what do I mean by that? It means really figuring out, not just believing, the television station that your parents listen to, but how do you determine what's factual or not? And it's getting harder and harder these days.
true.
You know, I mean, when I was young, there were just a few television channels, and journalism was meant to be factual. Now they probably hid stuff. I not. A few years ago, I saw a Ken Burns documentary about the Vietnam War, and there was a lot of exposure to facts that I didn't know about. I mean, I was only in my 20s, but
Mm,
they weren't told. So, but what I really disagree with is this movement now to wipe out our history, to cover the bad things that have happened in this country with slavery and so on, treatment of Native Americans, all the wrong things that we did, because you only learn when you realize the history. We don't have to um, assume blame for that, because these were our ancestors and that was the culture of the time, but we don't have to do it again. And
mm,
this assumption that if white men are made to feel bad about themselves because of what our ancestors did, and you just want to hide that information. I think it's wrong. I had this experience a few years ago. I'd always rather admired Germany for not denying what they did during the Holocaust, and they taught their kids that. I was in Japan in 2017 and had a private guides in different cities, and I asked one of them, which you can, when you're not on a bus or something, you can ask more personal or deep questions. I said, what is taught about World War II to high school students in Japan now? And the woman said, nothing. We don't want um, our students to be anti, the emperor and that kind of thing, and just feel mad about what happened, or guilty about what happened before. And as much as I like Japanese people and I like Japan, I felt that that was the wrong thing to do, because a lot of what happened during World War II that the Japanese did was, really awful, in prisoner of war camps and so on, what they did to Korean women and so on. Why not admit that we make mistakes?
mm,
And when I see that happening here, a denial of the truth and the facts about our history, that's very upsetting. And by critical thinking, I mean that students need to be taught. Yes, we want them to have their own opinions, but based on factual information and relevant research. So yeah, they can have their own opinions. People do have different opinions about things, but if it's based on some real legitimate research and legitimate facts, then it's much more valid.
mm.
I hope.
Wow. Yeah, okay. You know, uh, the rest of us don't see that or realize that from the educational side of things, that other countries would ignore or filter out what the history is. History is history. Uh,
Yeah,
it is what it is. I hate to say those words, but that's fits. That's
that's
what it is. So
that's
let's
what
look
it,
at it,
or
learn
that's
from
what
it.
it was, so
Right,
it
right.
doesn't mean we have to repeat it, and we can learn from it, you know.
Hmm. I have some emails I'd love to share if we may.
Sure, of course.
Instantfeedbacksteve@gmail.com if you want to reach us. And we have Kelsey in Colorado Springs, Colorado. She says, my son has found a major benefit in talking with the psychologist at his school. I want to find him one outside of school. Can you give advice on what I should be looking for?
Yes, and I'm delighted that her son likes to talk to a counselor or psychologist at school. And I mean, my feeling is that one can use a therapist for one's entire life because there's always issues that need to be um, worked through. So finding a therapist is almost like finding a spouse, you know?
100%. It's
Yes.
true.
You know, but one thing she can do, she can certainly Google American Psychological Association and look for, you know, psychologists that are in her area. Um, and then, you know, call and indicate what some of the issues that um, her son is dealing with. And, you know, because psychologists often have specialties. If it's and do they work with teenagers, for example, or
Mm.
you know, there's
Ooh,
usually a lot of information about on the website. You know, that's one good application of um, you know, technology now is that so if she can Google and look at a number of different psychologist, how and talk to him. Do you feel comfortable with? Do you want a male psychologist? Do you want a female psychologist? Does it not matter? And then you know, schedule appointment. And if it looks like there's a connection, um, you know, I think asking her son, you know, what is it you like about the psychologist at school? You know, to try to identify what are the characteristics. Is he or she a good listener? Does he or she ask questions? Is he critical? How has he or she made contact with you? What makes you feel like you're important? And, you know, those are all things that if he can identify, then the mom could, you know, pass that on to potential therapist for him outside of school, and then you know they would schedule an appointment and see how it goes. You know, it's just like when you have a date. You know what clicks and what doesn't click. Um,
without
so
being negative, based on what you said, I feel that the expectation should be, as you speak with your child, that we're gonna check into it. We're gonna see if we like them, and not like, well, make an appointment, you're going right away. You know, the child is locked into it.
yeah,
It's a relationship, and even to your point, when you're looking for one. I have a friend that I grew up with, known her since I was 17. She used to work with teens all the time, children all the time. In the last number of years, she doesn't. She just made a decision. This is taking it's a lot of work. It's challenging, and it's taken a lot out of her. So she doesn't bring those clients on anymore. And but you might not know that. It might not even be listed in a directory, even with your
yeah.
insurance company. So you really have to ask those questions just to make sure.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned insurance company because if the woman does have insurance, she can Google their website and see. Now, not all insurance pays for therapy or, you know, has
Mm,
a limit. Like I think Kaiser, for example, has like 10 sessions that you can have. I may be wrong about that, but
mm.
that's what I've heard in the past. But yes, so yeah, if she has insurance, that's certainly another way. Thank you for mentioning that because you can find um, therapists through the insurance company that are supported. But
In looking up, picking your brain on this one, it seems to me in the last few years, call it, 2 to 3 years, that it's almost hard to find a therapist. Either they're not accepting new patients,
hmm
they're just too busy right now.
yeah,
They might not even call you back because they're inundated. Are you hearing that, sensing that? What's going
yeah,
on?
yeah. I mean, a lot of it since COVID has been on Zoom, And it's you make kids may feel comfortable with that. I mean, I much prefer seeing my therapist in person. Um, but
Well,
during
okay, can we go
COVID,
there just for you're right there at that juncture. That friend I referred to, um, she says, don't do any kind of therapy unless it's in person when you're dealing with a child or a teen, because their attention is not there. Uh, if you can't, it is, what it is, with schedules and all, but you should always look to do it in person, especially when they're younger. What are your thoughts?
yeah, well, I think it's good. Just something happened to me just recently, a couple of weeks ago. A mom of a former student of mine contacted me, and she was concerned about her daughter, who I'd worked with from third through sixth grade. She just started high school, so I hadn't seen her in 2.5 years. And it's a divorce situation, and so and the girl was kind of being rejected by some of her friends that she'd had in middle school, and she
Mm.
wondered if I would talk to her. And I said, well, sure, I'd be happy to do that. Do you want to do Zoom or in person? And she said, can you do it in person? So last Sunday I went over and
Oh,
or it was a Saturday, I guess, and met with her in her apartment. And I hadn't seen her in 2.5 years, and but I didn't know actually how she was going to respond to our meeting together. So after, I mean, it seemed to be fine, but I emailed the mom later, and I said, how were things? And I'm more than happy to see her again. But if she didn't feel that we made a good connection, then I understand, and I'm not blaming her. But she said she really felt good about the conversation and suggested that we meet every other week
wow.
for a while, which made really good sense to me. And we talked a lot about, the different things going on. And but from the therapist point of view, you never know exactly what's going to make that connection. I mean, during my 48 years of work, kids really did like to come and talk to me. But I asked myself, what is it about me that makes kids feel comfortable talking? And you know, it, you have to really be self-reflective. And if somebody, like if that girl didn't feel comfortable talking to me, I would have wanted to know, did I do something, I won't say wrong, but what was it? Was I talking too much, or did I not pay attention to what she was saying?
Sure.
Um, you know,
They
so
see it differently, so you don't know what they're seeing.
yeah, you don't know what they're seeing. So I was delighted. I felt very good that she wanted to see me every other week, and so
Nice.
we'll do that for a little while.
How old was she again?
She'll be 15
Yeah.
at the end of the month.
Wow.
So, and I didn't used to work with kids that high school kids, but now that I work with some kids that have uh, are older, I like doing that. I talk to them pretty much like adults. So, I mean,
Well, we met, I think her name was Jess. Is that
yeah, yeah,
somebody
Jesse,
that you've known since I think it was kindergarten
kindergarten, right?
and still connected with her along her journey to where she's in her low 20s now.
Yeah,
And you're still connected. Like she leans on you when, she needs some advice and
right, right.
beautiful. I mean, there's something there. I- I've had I've had teachers reach back to me as an adult,
Uh-huh.
and I don't I can't even put it into words. They would reach back, yeah, just sorry on Facebook, want to see how you doing, how's it going? I'm like, oh my gosh, like how wonderful. And they're
Yeah,
like, pushing 90 now.
yeah,
And it's
yes,
just
right.
wonderful that they're connected. Here's
Yeah,
Here's another one. This one's coming from Justin in Naples, Florida. I'm a
Okay.
junior in high school. I have thought about psychology as a career, and I've thought about working in a school district because of the benefits and the work schedule. What are your thoughts?
Oh, well, I can't be unbiased about this one, you know. I think it's wonderful. Because working in a school district, you don't have to worry about the business aspect of
Mm,
a private therapist.
yep.
Um, you
Billing for insurance and all of that stuff.
and all
Yeah.
of that stuff. You have the benefit of getting to work with a lot of different children with a lot of different issues. As I've said before, I always felt kind of like a Renaissance man, you know, just with lots of different hats on. Um, Depending on the size of the district that one works with, all school psychologists have to do assessments of kids, but and some I mean, we're all trained to do a lot more than just assessing kids for learning disabilities and emotional disturbances and autism and so on. But the in smaller districts or districts that really want to use psychologists for a variety of services,
Mhm.
you can do counseling, you can go into classrooms and teach kids. You can even set up clubs for, you know, of your own interests. You know, I love doing that. Um, but it's if you really like interacting with lots of different people, if you have a lot of empathy, if you really want to serve and make um, children's lives better, if you have an interest in different cultures, because that's very, very important now. You know, I don't
Mm,
know what ethnic group this young person is in, but you know, in order to serve kids well, you need to understand their own culture, their whether it's African American or Latinx or Asian or whatever. If you um, you want to think about how you can connect with families so that you can work as a team. That's one of the best things about that job is um, while you have a lot of independence for your work, you are a team. So you don't have that entire total responsibility for solving a problem. You work with teachers, you work with administrators, you work with parents, you work with other kids. If the kid is being um, you know, hassled or bullied or teased, you can work with other kids. Doing groups is a possibility too. You can do individual counseling and you can do group counseling. Like I ran social skills groups for years, I ran divorce groups for years. Um,
mm,
and you can pay if there's an issue, you know, I think I've said before that I ran groups for kids whose parents were um, had serious illnesses and potentially could pass away. I ran groups for kids who had special needs siblings, you know, that didn't get much attention from their parents because the siblings needed it. So if it gives you a lot of opportunity to come up with helpful strategies and helpful ideas. The only uh, I don't even want to say disadvantage, but the only challenge, I guess, for working for a school district is you don't have control over your workload um, because you're there and you can't really say no. No, I don't want to see this kid, you know.
mm, mm.
Sooner or later you have to. And so, yeah, but you have very busy days. You're never bored. Um, so I think and you're always learning, you know, research develops, you know, you need to learn about how medication affects and helps or maybe has side effects for different conditions, depression, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, other emotional problems. Um, so it's a wonderful opportunity to keep learning, to not be bored, to have different activities every day. Um, but it's it is hard work. It's in a lot of ways, it's like solving puzzles. Okay, here's this kid. What makes him or her feel and act the way he or she does? And what's going on academically, what's going on emotionally, what's going on in the family, what's going on culturally. So if this young person, likes to solve problems, has a good logical mind,
Hmm.
and yeah, I mean, I think that's one thing about the job is you have to be skilled both socially and emotionally, and intellectually, because both parts of your brain are really working to solve problems.
I
And
love that puzzle analogy. You know,
yeah,
somebody comes before you, they have a challenge. How do we solve that challenge?
yeah,
And what's going to work? And you need to know all the pieces of the puzzle, like the family life, the school life. What about your friends? You need to see the whole. You have to get deep dive into their lives and research what they got going on, so you can come up with the solution. It's not just like, yeah, being bullied at school. Well, there's so much involved in that.
that's
You
right.
need the
And you
facts.
and you have to really talk to and get to know the kid because you don't know what possible there are a number of possible interventions or
They may have been causing the bullying, but they don't want to admit it.
oh yeah, yeah. I
You know?
mean, I've talked to kids about that too.
Mm.
I'd have them together and I would say, what is it that so and so is doing that if anything, that makes you want to get back at him, usually a him, but could be a her. Um, and you know, you can't just assume that somebody is completely victimized. Now, when I was a kid and everybody called me shrimp because I was short, I don't think I did anything to uh, deserve that, but
Hey, I was the fat kid. Never got picked for dodgeball. Got picked on, bullied. My Casper the Friendly Ghost lunchbox thrown out the bus window.
oh no.
Vivid memories. Vivid memories.
Oh yeah, we
I,
don't forget those things. No.
no, no, but that also pilots us as adults in terms of how we feel and self-worth until you work on those things. I want to go back to what you said a moment ago. The groups that you created, Alan, like the divorce group. Did you find that in that group, it made it much easier for students to open up and talk? Would they freely talk about their situations?
Yes,
Wow.
yes. I started I used to do like first and second graders to start, but I realized they were too young. So most of the divorce groups I did were third, fourth, and fifth graders in that
Mm.
school. And I would mix them. I would mix them by gender and grade level. So, usually the fifth graders were more talkative, but I mean, I had even a third grader say, well, my mother's an alcoholic, or something like that. And yeah, they did open up.
Wow.
They felt comfortable doing that. I
Mm.
mean, every now and then there'd be too many kids with ADHD in the group, and I'd have to calm them down. But for the most part, they would share what was going on, and we would do like maybe 4 or 5 weeks in, we would do little role plays. So I would get the secretary of the school to come in. She would be
Mm.
the other parent, and we would act out some of the common things that um, kid,
Wow.
kids observed. Like we would get into an argument in front of the kids, and then I would teach the kids a lot about communication. How do you express what are you really feeling here? and how do you express that to your parent? Like, and not just, I'm so angry when you and daddy are fighting, that kind of thing. And I'd say, no, that's when I would teach them, softer feelings and a nice statement. I feel really sad and worried when I hear you and daddy arguing. Can you please not do that in front of me? And there's a much better chance that a parent would listen to a kid when they're expressing one of those softer feelings, like I'm confused, I'm worried, I'm sad, I'm scared. Um, Not that parents listen all the time to their kids, but I think there's a much better chance of that. And so we would do like 4 or 5 scenes. Like another one would be, um, I think your dad's dating. Can you tell me all about it? Or, that kind of thing, where a kid is in the middle and asked to be sort of revealing information. And instead of saying, no, I'm not going to tell you, and saying, I feel really uncomfortable. If you want to know, just ask dad. That sort of approach. But there were several different regular kind of scenes that divorced kids would, or kids of divorce would experience.
We don't realize the impact of the people in the school have on us or had on us as we grew up later in life. Because as I'm thinking about this, I can go through my elementary school each year, and I don't remember exactly like my first grade teacher. Um, Remember my second grade teacher, good or bad, that was a challenge. I got spanked in front of the class because I laughed, and that teacher had some disciplinary action.
Can't
But
do that anymore.
oh no, oh no, and even back. But you know what? That incident made an impact on me. Third grade teacher, sweetheart, loved her, wonderful art teacher. I still remember he was a great guy, but he was also basically said, tough it up. And I had challenges. My parents got divorced when I was very little. I get emotional. And his basically, tough it up, yeah, maybe that's good and bad. Fifth grade teacher encouraged my creativity. And that's where like the door opened. And I'll never forget him for that. And I actually went back to that school about, I don't know, 15 years ago and spoke to the students in his class
Oh, wow.
about him and what I learned.
Oh,
It was super cool. Like
yeah.
he's just was a wonderful teacher. I have to look him up. Haven't heard from him or about him in a while. I knew he beat cancer. And even even later in life, teachers, psychologists, staff make a huge impression. I don't think we realize it. Maybe those in schools maybe
Well,
don't
that's a
realize it as
very
much.
good point because the young man who asked about working in schools, I think it's important that a person who does that, he or she, um, have pretty good self-esteem. And the
Mm,
reason I'm saying that is because you don't always know what impact you're, particularly with younger kids, you don't know what impact you are actually having on them. Um, because they're not quite able to. I mean, they might say thank you, but they
mm,
might not say you really made a difference in how I'm interacting with this, or you really made a difference in my academics. Now, sometimes, like Jessie, I mean, she was able to say that as an older teenager or 20-year-old, but you know, I think in order to feel successful, um, you can't necessarily expect that you're going to get a direct compliment for what you do. Now, sometimes that happens. Um, sometimes, like when I retired, I got letters from, I
mm.
mean, teachers would have all their kids write letters, and even like fourth or fifth grade or something, and it was wonderful, but you don't always know the impact you're having. And
Yeah.
and so I think you have to be, pretty self-analytical and say, do I think, and look for little, like smiles or, just laughs, because, and that's what I used to like to do. If I could get a kid to laugh, I felt, okay, this is pretty good, particularly one that was sad or something like that. But so I'm just telling this young person that, it's not so clear when you're working in schools. Um, you have to look for nonverbal signs, and subtle hints that, yeah, I did a good thing. And you want to check back in with them if you've done some counseling around friendship or something like that to make sure that um, things are going better. And if they say, yeah, things are going better, then take that as, but you may have to ask, you may
Right.
not get it directly.
Well, a great point you bring up, self-esteem. If you don't get the feedback you want from a student that you're working with, you can't take it personally.
Right.
You're doing your best,
And going
and
back to that first discussion, that's what I worry so much about with all the negative comments. It's hard to ignore all of that, and not say, well, maybe I am a bad person or something like that.
right.
And when you're getting it from, when you get it from anybody in control, whether it's the President of the United States or a principal or a teacher or a parent, it really affects your self-esteem. And I'm not saying that everybody has to have super high self-esteem so that they can never be criticized but if you have a general sense that, like this girl I met the other day, or re-met, when she was feeling rejected by friends, I asked her about self-esteem, and she was able to name a whole bunch of things and say, you can't, it may not be you. It may be just these kids who want to hang out together and not and not include you sometimes. If we have a decent self-esteem and something negative happens, then we can at least rely on that to
Mm.
not not crumble, you know.
Got another one. This is West Palm Beach, Florida.
Okay.
And this is Rosemary checking in. She says, I hope you can help. My son is 8 and has started having anxiety about going to places alone.
Hmm.
Being dropped off at a friend's birthday party brings him stress. I don't know where this is coming from. What are your thoughts?
Okay. Um, Well, that's not so unusual. He's pretty young still. Um, usually when kids are about 10, they can go biking over to their friends' houses and so on. But I've certainly dealt with 10-year-olds who were anxious about staying overnight at like our outdoor education for 4 days, and um, it's it is challenging, I would say. And I think it's what we all experience in having to get out of our comfort zone. Okay. Um, and it depends on, is this kid terrified? But certainly the mom should want to ask, what are you scared of? And to get the kid to talk about that. Does this happen at school too? Is he afraid to try
Mm,
something new at school? And if so, then that's a good excuse to have him talk to a counselor. No, I've certainly worked with kids who are afraid. They're those very shy kids, and maybe he's afraid of being rejected at the party, or he doesn't have the social skills to interact with other people, with other kids. Maybe they're going to play games and he's afraid he's going to lose. Um, again, it's like a puzzle, like I was
right.
saying. You
And
know,
we don't have all the pieces to the puzzle, even in this situation.
no, no, we don't have all the pieces to the puzzle.
We maybe there's something going on at home. Maybe there's been a
Yeah,
change. But it sounds like this wasn't the way it's always been, that this
okay,
kind of cropped up. That's what it's
yeah.
sounding like.
So maybe he's afraid of, maybe this birthday party is there's somebody there that has been mean to
Mm,
him at school, you
mm,
know, Yeah, you really don't know, but it what it says is let's start investigating this. Um, maybe he's very attached to his parents and doesn't want to leave them. I mean, there are kids with um, fear of going to school. And I've worked with kids there too, usually
Mm,
because there's a very deep connection between a kid and his or her mother and is afraid to leave them, is worried that something's going to happen to mom and, I'm not going to be there. So
mm.
that's called school phobia. And it's really not about the school, but it's more about the relationship with the parents. So if it gets worse, and this kid doesn't want to go anywhere, um, then therapy is recommended for sure. But maybe if there's any signs of this at school where he's reluctant to try something new, and they have a school counselor or psychologist, they could connect him with that and kind of
Sure.
see what's going on. But a lot of it is, there are many people who don't like to get out of their comfort zone. They're afraid, am I going to be able to do this? What's going to happen to me? Certainly, depending on the environment, I don't want to walk alone. Um, just the other day, my youngest godson, who has a band, was up here in San Francisco and was playing about 4 blocks away from me, but it was at nighttime, and I was going to meet his mom and godmother at a restaurant, and I was thinking, am I going to be safe walking, 4 blocks from my house to down to the street? And I walked very fast. I ended up following a couple, and it wasn't scary, but
Well,
you
you
get.
bring up, let's go there. You bring up
Yeah.
a great point. Even in that situation, isn't it true that we always want to feel safe, no
Safe.
matter what it is? That's kept us here on this planet since the beginning of humans.
Yeah.
You're always looking for ways to be safe, even your subconscious mind, trying to find a way. How do I bring it back? Being safe. So apparently, in Rosemary's 8-year-old situation, he doesn't feel safe. I don't know what
Yeah.
it is, you know.
Yeah, we don't know what he's scared of,
Right.
you know and
Mm,
and that's what's important to find out, because maybe it's something, there is a risk. I mean, I doubt it, but maybe there's some outside risk, or maybe it's internal that I'm nobody's going to play with me at this birthday party, or there's some guy there who's
uh,
mean to me at school, and I don't want to be around him.
mm,
Or maybe I'm going to lose all the games, and people will make fun of me. So, we don't know, and that's related to self-esteem too. But it takes sometimes it takes some real effort to move ourselves out of that comfort zone and try something new.
mm. Yeah, and you don't know that you can unless somebody or
Unless you try.
should. Right. Until somebody like yourself, psychologist or somebody you speak to, maybe not your parents,
Yeah.
to see it that way. We're just about out of time.
Yeah.
Good stuff today. Great conversation, gotta tell you.
Yeah.
We went in the car went in all different directions and all different, but that's the beauty of the way it works.
Yeah.
Instant feedback, Steve at gmail.com. If you ever have any questions, concerns, or anything for Alan, as always, Alan, always great having you on here.
Yeah. Thank you so much. My
You
pleasure.
know, even though you're not actively practicing in a school, it's like we're in a school.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It's
I'm glad you feel that way.
I'll just use the phrase that's in your DNA. This is it really is.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Appreciate it. We'll catch up soon.
Okay. Have a good rest of the week.
You too. We'll be right back.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.